Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is a fantastically beautiful Tuesday, March the 12th, coming to you right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios and 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio. Man, you talk about some beautiful days we're having in Lubbock, Texas. It is just absolutely gorgeous out there today. Wind's not blowing, the sun is shining. It's just gorgeous. The flowers are the flowers are blooming. We got a beautiful flower bed out here. Kayla over at the White Lily taking care of us, getting lots and lots of compliments about our flower bed. And I tell everybody I'm so proud of it because I 100% delegated it. Don't have anything to do with it. And all you guys that are watching this show are so happy to know that, because if you've been putting up with this show for a while, that you've been watching this show, then you could totally understand if I was in charge of it, it wouldn't look near as good. I got all kinds of stuff going on up here. Half the time we can't hear it. My microphone's not right. It's a mess, but we're going to stick with it. We're going to stay after it, and hopefully it'll be better. But yeah, it's beautiful out. It's beautiful. The grass is starting to grow. It's just such a great time of year. March is just such a great time because we've been in winter. You know, we've been dealing with winter. We've been fighting it, all that. Everybody's been sick and all that sort of thing. Not everybody, but a lot of people been sick, right? And then now we get some sunshine. Baseball's going on. Track meets are going on. We got lots of stuff going on out there in the world. And spring break's going on in Lubbock. I don't know about the rest of you guys out there in the world, but the spring break's going on here. Everything's quiet, and not quiet in the office, but quiet in the town. It's kind of quieted down. The traffic wasn't so bad last few mornings, and so yeah. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope everything's going your way. Hope your brain is functioning properly. Hope your body is functioning properly. And if it's not, maybe something that we'll say tonight will help it function better. That's what it's all about, right? That's why we do this show, just trying to give you some information. I got lots of stuff to talk about tonight. Osteoarthritis, one of them, my favorite subjects that we talk about all the time. Movement, really, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about movement. It's time to move. This is the time to move. It's time to get out there and get on your feet and move and get after it. So that's kind of what the show is going to be about, the importance of movement and how it fires your brain and how it makes your life better, and how when you can get on your feet and you can move your feet, how your whole world becomes better. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But to start off, I got this little idea that we'll do for a little while. I want to talk about like a little supplement of the day. And just to give you some information about some things that you might not know about, and one of them that I want to talk about tonight is called Zypan. And Zypan is a digestive enzyme. And it's for all those people out there who are Rolaids and Tums eaters and Prilosec and all that stuff. And when you listen to a health and wellness guy, one of the things that you start to realize is that he says stuff completely opposite of what my medical doctor says. And it's because your medical doctor is a sick care guy. It's not a health and wellness guy. Most of them. Some of them are kind of coming around to our side of the wellness world. Not our side, the wellness side of the world, right? But most of them, if you go in and say, Doc, I've got acid reflux, what are they going to do? They're going to give you a proton pump inhibitor. They're going to block the acid in your stomach. And I could write you a paper on how bad that idea is right there, right? And how many of us really are told that that's not a good idea? I mean, why do you have acid in your esophagus, right? We've talked about it before. Well, someone comes into our office and they're having a digestive problem with heartburn. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to recommend Zypan. I'm going to recommend Zypan. And Zypan is a dietary digestive support enzyme. It combines several different things: pancreatin, pepsin, and betaine hydrochloride to facilitate healthy digestion. Supports macronutrient digestion. Hydrochloric acid is involved in maintaining proper gastric pH. Includes stearic acid to coat the pancreatin, helping it to digest in the correct area of the digestive tract. Provides enzymatic support for protein digestion. Supports the digestive environment of the GI tract. It's super important to have acid in your stomach. And there's one little sentence right there that is really important. Provides enzymatic support for protein digestion. In order to break down your proteins, you got to have acid in your stomach. And you know, we talk a lot about we got to get our protein, right? Everybody knows that. Everybody is always talking about that. It's in the health and wellness world. We got to get our protein. We got to make sure that we break down our protein. It's super important for us. It's super important for us to make sure that we're building muscle, right? Now all of a sudden it's the new craze. I've started hearing it, and it's really funny how it works with, especially now with social media, is that you hear something, and then all of a sudden somebody else picks it up and they talk about it, and that's kind of funny because that's what I'm going to talk about with the article of the day tonight. But you hear one thing, you talk, and then pretty soon somebody else is talking about it, and somebody else is talking about it, and then it becomes super popular, right? We go through these phases of popularity when things are happening, like cold tubs. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, cold tubs. Cold tubs just all of a sudden blew up, became popular. Everybody's talking about cold therapy. Everybody's getting the cold tub to jump in. Joe Rogan talks about it, and Dr. Hyman talks about it, and then all of a sudden, here we go, where everybody's in a cold tub. They don't have any idea why they're in a cold tub. They don't really know why it's working. They don't know what good it's doing their body. They just get in there and they do it, right? Well, part of the reason we call this office the Rock Health and Wellness Center, the number one part of it is that you can build your health on the foundation of the rock. That's what it was all about. So we try to give you the information that will help you live a healthier life. That's what we're trying to do, right? So Zypan is one of those things that it's hydrochloric acid, basically. I mean, we want to increase the acid in your stomach. We don't want to decrease the acid in your stomach. It's not a decreased amount of acid. I mean, it's not an increased amount of acid that is your problem. You have any acid in your esophagus, it hurts. If you have one little drop of acid in your esophagus, it does damage to the tissues of the esophagus. The esophagus is made differently. It's kind of like your shoe. I mean, you know, in a certain way, like the bottom of your shoe is made out of hard rubber, right? It's way harder than the top cloth part of your shoe. It's two different materials. You've got a material on the bottom of your shoe because that bottom of your shoe is going to hit the earth every time you walk, and you got material on the top of your shoe that may be soft, like, you know, some sort of soft thread or something, like these Ultra Boosts I've got on today. They've got the hard. It's not hard like rock hard, but it is compared to the thread that's on the top of the shoe. The sole of the shoe is way tougher than the thread part of the shoe, right? Well, the acid, the cells inside the stomach are way tougher when it comes to the pH level that they can handle. pH is basically your acid base, your acid, right? The more acidic something is, the lower that pH gets. And so you need that acid to break down your foods, but the stomach material, the cells inside the stomach are made for low acid concentrations. But the cells inside the esophagus are not made for low acid concentrations. That it'll burn them up. So you've got a little sphincter on top of that stomach that closes whenever it gets hit by that acid on the bottom. And you've heard of a hiatal hernia before. It's kind of the idea is that whole thing is I'm not closing down that sphincter, and now it's staying open. It's like you're not getting the faucet turned all the way down on your water hose. You're not getting the faucet turned all the way down, and so you got this little drip that's coming out of your water hose. Well, think about that as acid that's coming through that water hose, and it's not supposed to be there. Well, that's the acid that gets into your esophagus, and that's what causes esophageal problems, right? But there's several dynamics to that, to fixing that problem. And one of the dynamics that the medical world uses all the time is to give you some sort of acid blocker, and it makes sense if you're allopathically trained, right? I know we can't even talk about this, right? We can't even talk. It's so hard to talk about this after 6 months because we've already talked about it, right? And it. What do we say? Almost every show, it wraps back around on top of itself, right? You know, I'm going to wrap it back around on top of itself because where do we get our allopathic training? Well, we did a study on that a few weeks ago. We read the book Blitzed. We studied the Abraham Flexner report, right? We know that our medical model in the United States is allopathic, meaning opposite of. And it has to do with the Carnegies and the Rockefellers. I didn't make that up. I didn't make any of this stuff up. I'm not that smart. I didn't make up Zypan's good for acid reflux. I just learned it, right? Same way I learned that human beings shouldn't be drinking cow's milk. I just learned that too, right? And I grew up in a county that's produced more cow's milk than any other county in the Southwest. And so I get sometimes where you have to. I get the idea that you have to understand. You got to be willing to learn something new. You got to be willing to take some of this information and say, okay, that's not the way I learned it. That's not the way my mom and daddy taught me. That's not the way my grandparents taught me. That's not the way my aunts and uncles function and my cousins and all the rest of them. It's like nobody, no, my friends sure don't do it that way. But this one crazy dude is telling me I shouldn't be taking Rolaids and Tums. I should be taking Zypan. Yep, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Increase your stomach acid, break your food down, increase your stomach acid, and make sure you break down your proteins because otherwise you're not going to break down your proteins. Increase your stomach acid and make sure that you are getting that food broken down and all of the little things that shouldn't be alive once they get through the stomach. That's another thing because you can get some bad stuff in your small intestines because of the way that it moved through the stomach when you didn't have very good acid in the stomach. So there's multiple layers right there. And what do we always talk about? We talk about the brain. Get your brain to function better and your stomach will function better. And I've got a patient in the office who was having some esophageal erosion stuff going on, and he's been getting adjusted for over a year and a half now, I think, and that's like almost cleared up. And he didn't really do a whole lot different than what he had done before, except he added chiropractic care to get him adjusted. And we've been working on his brain in a certain pattern to make sure that it works right, which decreases the stress level, which decreases that lower brain escape, which decreases that vagus nerve involvement, which keeps your digestive tract functioning the way it's supposed to. So that's the supplement of the day is Zypan. It's great for someone who's having digestive problems. And there's a couple of ways, there's a couple of different digestive problems. It could be in the stomach, it could be in the small intestine, it could be in the lower bowels in different areas of your intestine. So there's different supplements depending on where it is, but I just wanted to cover that one tonight called Zypan. So moving on, we were having supper last night, and my son gave me this. He's in for spring break, hanging out with us this week, and they had a week off, and he's teaching theater at Pascal High School in Fort Worth. And the one act play group has won the first round of their show, and so they're moving on. But they've got a little time off of spring break, so he came home and spent some time with us. So it's always glad to have Jacob home. But he gave me this article last night, and you might not. Last night was the first I'd heard about it. I kind of default worked my way through it, but I didn't really know why, and I got lucky and have ended up doing this. But I'm going to read this article title for you, and it's kind of complicated, but we'll break it down. So, impact of polyphenol oxidase on the bioavailability of flavin-3-ols in fruit smoothies, a controlled single-blind crossover study. And this was from the Journal of Food and Function, issue 18, 2023. And this is a peer-reviewed journal. that um, was done. So the basically, you may have heard of polyphenols, especially like listen to someone like Dr. Gundry. He talks about that all the time. Polyphenols and are some good things that you get from eating certain berries and fruits, right, and other foods. But from a smoothie standpoint, you get polyphenols, um, like if you want your blueberries and your strawberries, and even from grapes and the skins of different things. So there's a certain kind of polyphenol called a flavin, FLAVAN, a flavin 3 ols, OLS. Flavin-3-ols are bioactive compounds found in a variety of fruits and vegetables that have been linked to positive health benefits. Increasing your flavin-3-ol intake is challenged by the general low consumption of fruit and vegetables. So everybody knows if you eat your fruit and vegetables, you'll be healthier. Everybody's been saying that for quite some time. While smoothies are commonly endorsed consumer accepted means to increase the daily intake of these important foods, fruits used for smoothie preparation can have high polyphenol oxidase activity and thus potentially affect the content and bioavailability of the flavin-3-ols. So polyphenol oxidase is what certain fruits and vegetables have that that is basically a defense mechanism for the fruit, but it will turn the fruit brown. Like if you ever cut an apple and left an apple open, right? And you leave that apple open, you'll get that browning of the apple. Bananas are the ones that's in the article here. Bananas turn brown, right? They get bruised just a little bit, and what's causing that browning is this polyphenol oxidase that will bruise it and will cause it um, to start to deteriorate, right? So, to assess whether or not consuming freshly prepared smoothies made with different um, polyphenol oxidase containing fruit impacts the bioavailability of flavin-3-ols, a controlled single-blind and crossover study was conducted in healthy men, only 8 of them, but who consumed the flavin-3-ol containing banana-based smoothie, which is high in the polyphenol oxidase, a flavin-3-ol containing mixed berry smoothie, which was low in the polyphenol oxidase, and a flavin-3-ol in capsule format. The peak plasma concentrations of this flavin-3-ol metabolites after capsule intake was 680 was the score. So they gave them the capsules. They measured what their plasma concentration, their blood concentration of these flavin-3-ols were, and it was 680, which was similar to the levels detected after the intake of the low PPO drink. In contrast, the intake of the high PPO, polyphenol oxidase, drink resulted in a 96 score, which was 84% lower than obtained after capsule intake. As in a subsequent study with 11 people, the flavin-3-ols were co-ingested with a high PPO banana drink, but contact prior to intake was prevented, meaning that they didn't mix them together. And what they found out was they were still reduced, suggesting an effect of possibly related to post-ingestion of polyphenol oxidase activity, degrading flavin-3-ols in the stomach. There were substantial range of the PPO activity detected in 18 different fruits and vegetables, plants, derived dairy products. In conclusion, bioavailability of flavin-3-ols and most likely other dietary polyphenol bioactives can be reduced substantially by the co-ingestion of high polyphenol oxidase containing products, the implication of which are important for dietary advice and food preparation both at home and industrial settings. Now, that's a lot of words. And I know you're thinking to yourself, what did you just say? Right? But I just thought I'd read it to you and then we could discuss it. Basically, what it's saying is we these antioxidants that we want so much and that we talk about so much for lots of reasons, but one of those main reasons that we want to take those antioxidants is to protect that mitochondria, to protect the mitochondria that we have. So we want to make sure that we can do that. Well, we got to be able to get them in our body. We got to be able to get them absorbed in our body. And in order to do that, we got to make sure that we're not breaking them down in the process. So what the article is saying, and I did a little bit more research on it this afternoon just to make sure that it was saying what it said. But if you mix bananas in your smoothie, you're decreasing your bananas are the high polyphenol oxidase fruit because they'll make that banana turn brown, right? So there's lots of it in there. When you mix your bananas in your berry smoothie, we know that it also increases your blood sugar. Eating a banana is almost like eating a Snickers bar when it comes to blood sugar. And we, in our office, are very concerned about your blood sugar. We want to make sure that you can control your blood sugar, right? So we've talked about bananas in the past. I'm not super big fan of bananas because of the blood sugar content. And now I'm even more not a big fan of bananas when you mix them with berries. Now, if you want to eat bananas on your own, it's not going to have anything to do with it. And some people like bananas. I don't particularly think they're all that great for you personally, but there's just from a blood sugar standpoint. But you can eat bananas if you want to, but you might not want to put them in your smoothies. It's an 84% lower than taking the capsule. When you mix the banana and the berries together in your smoothie, you have the potential of the polyphenol oxidase breaking down the flavonols, and you're losing 84% of the nutrient value that you could be getting if you just skip the bananas. So you say, what is that? And it's what are some of the other things? One of the things that you could use instead is you could use some mango. Now that's a fruit, and you're going to get some sugar out of that, and so you kind of got to watch out. Pineapple kind of helps a little bit, and I know the smoothies, the banana adds so much to the smoothie, it makes it all thick and that sort of thing. But I had a smoothie this morning with just blueberries and strawberries, and water, and that's it. A little bit of stevia for sweetness and some ice, but nothing else in the smoothie. That's the only thing that I put in the smoothie this morning was just blueberries and strawberries and a little bit of stevia. That's all. So mixed it with water. Don't have to get almond milk. Don't have to get rice milk. Don't have to do all that coconut stuff. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. You could just get your berries. Most of the time, I'll just eat the berries. I think that's probably the better way of ingesting them is to just eat them. But sometimes people don't. They want something else. Coconut milk or coconut water. Those things have those medium chain triglycerides in there. That's good for you. I'm not saying it's not good for you. It is good for you. We had this conversation the other morning. We were talking about one of our listeners. She may be listening tonight, but she said something about a cake that she made. Somebody was showing her some cookware this weekend, and she made a cake and had carrots and broccoli and something else in it. Right? I don't know if I mentioned that last night on the show or not, but for the moisture, basically, because she was trying to make a healthier cake, and I'm sure that's a healthier cake. If you put carrots and broccoli in your chocolate cake, I'm sure it makes it somewhat healthier, I would guess. I don't know what the mix is and how to mix all the rest of that stuff. But we got into a conversation of why you need that at all. And I'm probably not the best guy. I'm probably not the best guy to add the fluff to the whole thing. I think I'm probably unpopular, basically, because it's not fun. It's not a fun thing to do. I just don't. Sometimes my brain doesn't think about it in those formats. But I don't really see what the point of. I don't. I went through the almond milk phase, is what I'm saying. I went through. I got off the dairy. I took the milk out of my smoothie, and I went to the almond milk. And then you start having to try to figure out what healthy almond milk there is. And then we went to some rice milk, and then I was like, I don't think this is any good. And then we went back and forth, and then we tried the coconut milk, and we've done all the different things. And to me, it's just like it seems like I'm spending a lot of time and energy putting in something that I really don't even need. I could just use water. And same thing with like that's what we were talking about the other day. Well, was like making muffins and stuff out of almond flour and all that stuff. It's like I guess if you have to have muffins, but really you could just skip the muffins. Like it's not necessary. Just eat the food that you don't have to put together. Maybe it's because I'm not a recipe guy, but anyway. So the moral of the moral of the story right there is you might not want to add bananas to your smoothies in the morning if you're trying to get all of the health benefits from the smoothie. You might want to just make sure you skip the banana, eat the banana later if you want a banana, but not while you're having the smoothie. So, all right, that's the first half of the show. We'll be right back right after these messages with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we'll see you guys on the other side of the break. Get a little drink. Yeah. When we come back, we'll talk about movement and how important it is. That's the first time I'd heard that about the bananas breaking down the availability of that polyphenol right there. And you want that nutrients from the berry, so you just might not want to mix those two things together. And I have no idea. I've never studied it. Maybe you guys have studied it to know exactly like in nature would we be mixing berries and bananas together? Where do bananas grow, and where do strawberries and blueberries grow? I don't really know. I don't know the history of that or know where those berries would come from. We might have somewhere along the way mixed those two things together, but now that we're evolving in our knowledge, then we might get to the point here where we can say that's probably not the best thing to do. Might want to skip that, take the banana out, eat the berries by themselves, or if you want to have them in a smoothie, eat them that way. Another thing that has a lot of polyphenol oxidase is mushrooms, but cooking destroys that enzyme. So, and we always should cook our mushrooms, right? So that's something that we already know. And so if you're cooking with your mushrooms, you don't have to worry about that breaking down and destroying the rest of the food. If you cooked your bananas, they actually said at like 70 degrees Celsius for 2 minutes, that would cook it down. So they were talking, one of the articles I was looking at talked about that. If you cook the bananas, not so much for eating a hot smoothie, but for what it does for like the pre-made drinks that you have that you can buy in the store that have bananas in them. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we've talked about some cool stuff, Zypan, digestive stuff, and an article about bananas in the smoothie. And now for the second half, I want to talk about movement. And I want to talk about movement in multiple different ways. And there's some articles I want to talk about. I'm sorry, I tried to print them off. For you guys watching on social media, I'm going to have to be looking at my screen for a lot of the second half of this show because I don't know, something happened. And when I tried to print off all my articles to have right here in front of me, they just came out in squares. I'm not really sure what that's about, but something was weird right there. So I came across this article, and it led me into the movement thought process. It was spinal manipulation and exercise for low back pain in adolescents. And we are a wellness office. You guys know that. And you know how much I'm not a back pain guy. But sometimes you get research that shows you some of that information, and you might as well talk about it. I talked about it a little bit in the last few shows. But It's basically adjustments in exercise for low back pain in adolescents. So the kids with that are not functioning properly, that are causing themselves some pain. Um, I thought it was interesting that, and this came from the journal Pain, March 27, 2018, and these were some people from the University of Minnesota. The article cites 60 references. Um, the authors conducted a randomized trial comparing 12 weeks of spinal manipulative therapy. I'm going to call those adjustments from now on, right? So, 12 weeks of adjustments combined with exercise therapy to exercise therapy alone. So, take the kid, just do exercise, or you get them adjusted and you do the exercise. And 185 adolescents from 12 to 18 years with chronic low back pain. And man, that's a bummer right there, because chronic low back pain was defined as a duration of the current episode of greater than 12 weeks. 96%, and this was 31% male, 69% female. 96% of the subjects had low back pain that was chronic in nature. Consequently, the results of this study are most applicable to adolescents with low back pain that is long standing. Man, if you got a child that's got low back pain for more than 12 weeks, um, you should get them adjusted. I mean, that's what the article is going to say, but I just don't get it. There's no sense in that. Like, there's no sense in having a 12 to 18-year-old, 12 to 18-year-old with that their back's hurting for more than 12 weeks. They should respond really quick to that. Like, and remember, and what we're going to get to is how in this second half of the show is how that those things. Remember, let's think of brain first. Let's don't think of back first. Let's think of brain first. Let's always think of brain first. Let's think of it, and in all scenarios, let's think of brain first, right? And and like, so what? Like, did I mention the lady? I think maybe I did last night, that told me that she couldn't feel her feet, and we were talking about that. Like, she's got really horrible balance problems. She has replaced knee. She's got a horrible spine. She couldn't feel her feet, and so I found this little article right here, another article, and this was in the Journal of Neurophysiology. Cutaneous afferent innervation. Cutaneous afferent innervation of the human foot and sole. What can we learn from single unit recordings? Cutaneous afferents convey exteroceptive information about the interaction of the body with the environment, and proprioceptive information about the body position and orientation. I know you're not the only one. I read these articles too, and I'm like, what in the heck did that say? Right? I mean, these smart guys that write all these articles and these PhDs and all this stuff, man, they're writing them to their other friends. They're not writing them to the rest of us. That's why I'm trying to translate some of them so that you can understand them, because I don't even understand them a lot of times. Cutaneous means basically in the skin, right? The outside. Afferent means information that's going from the body to the brain. Afferent means information that's going from the body to the brain. Efferent means information that's going from the brain to the body. Those are two different types of signals. That when I touch this countertop, I'm feeling hot and cold. I'm feeling sharp and dull. I'm feeling that smoothness. So this countertop is a wood grain countertop, and that I have here on the desk. And the wood grain countertop, and when I touch it, it's cold. There's some cool feeling to it right there. The coolness of it is being transferred into my brain. I'm feeling it in my fingers, but I'm processing it in my brain. That's an afferent input. It's an afferent input. A cutaneous afferent is what's sending that information from my hand. It's sending that information from my hand to my brain. That's an afferent pathway. Okay. That's a certain way that your nervous system functions. All right. My feet are doing the same thing right now. They're feeding my brain. And the reason I wanted to say that, the reason I wanted to bring this article up is, let's just talk about this first sentence. Cutaneous afferents convey exteroceptive information about the interaction of the body with the environment. I am getting my brain, even though I'm sitting here talking to you, and I lean forward on the desk and I put my hands on the desk and I put my arm right here on the desk, and I'm also feeling the heat in this room. This room is just a little bit hot tonight. Sometimes my face gets, I think all this stuff, and sometimes my face gets a little red. It's I'm getting all this information about the interaction of with my body with the environment, and proprioceptive information about body position and orientation. I know where I'm at on this stool that I'm sitting on, right? And if you guys know it, you could just slide yourself back on the back edge of your chair, and then it'd be like, whoa, hang on. Like you feel unstable all of a sudden. And what does that mean? That means that your brain feels unstable. That your brain is like, hold up, dude. I'm like, we're not balancing properly all of a sudden. We're not like that's not safe. Don't lean back too much further. You're gonna fall off the back of this stool, right? That's proprioceptive information that I'm getting about body position and orientation. That's why I have my feet. You can't see them, but my feet are bent. My knees are bent, and my feet are on the bottom of this little bar on this stool. And sometimes I'll have to move them around, or sometimes I have to move myself around. That's constant proprioceptive information that is getting sent to my brain about where I am in space. Now, think about how dangerous it would be and how disruptive it would be if I've lost some of that input into my brain. What if my brain has lost my hands and feet? What if I can't feel my feet? How important would that be? Like, that would be a big deal, right? If I can't feel my feet, that would be a huge deal. So if I touch this um, this tabletop and I can't feel it, then I'm not sending any afferent information into my brain to give me information about how my body is interacting with my environment. Like, I might just sit here and start leaning over. And then, like, I just keep leaning over, and I don't even realize I'm leaning over. And you'd be like, sit up straight. And I'm like, I didn't even realize I wasn't sitting up straight because I had lost that information, right? And it's and down here in this paragraph said, why study foot sole cutaneous afferents is a question that they ask. Why study that? What difference does it make if we study the bottom, the afferent input on the bottom of the foot? Well, cutaneous feedback from the soles of the feet plays an important role in the control of gait and standing balance. Gait and standing balance. Skin stretch and pressure feedback associated with standing balance are conveyed by cutaneous afferents into the central nervous system, where it interacts with descending motor commands at the spinal cord and reflexively modulates motor neuron excitability. That's a lot of big words to say. That input is interacting with the motor output, the efferent information that's going from the brain back down to the body, that's keeping me balanced, that's keeping me from falling. It's really, really important that we be able to feel our feet. We really need to feel our feet in order to keep us balanced when we try to stand, and to keep us balanced when we try to sit. And I mean, when we try to walk, and when we try to sit, but not so much from our feet, but from our hips and legs and on wherever we're sitting from, right? And our core and how it's balancing itself. Those things are massively important. We've got to be able to feel those things going back and forth. And when we don't feel those things, then we set ourselves up for danger. So now let me read that sentence again, because I think it's really important. Stretch and skin stretch and pressure feedback associated with standing balance are conveyed by cutaneous afferents into the central nervous system, where it interacts with descending motor commands at the spinal cord. All right, where it interacts with descending motor commands. Remember what I said last night? I think it was last night we talked about this. Remember what I said when I said, look, you don't have degeneration in your knee before you have interruption in your brain. You had interruption in your brain before you had degeneration in your knee. And why would I say that, and what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that there's been a disruption in the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, because of the altered afferent information and that's coming into the brain. For whatever reason, we've lost that we can't feel our feet, we can't feel our knees. Just think about it. If I can't feel my feet, then my feet aren't conveying to my brain where I am in relationship to my environment and where I am proprioceptively in my body in space. I'm losing that input to my brain, and now my brain is having to send motor output back down to my body, like my thighs, my quads, my hamstrings, my calves, my glutes, those areas that are going to help me stand, my erectors, on the back side of my body. How am I going to stand up? How am I going to coordinate standing? How am I going to coordinate that? Might that change if I'm not getting proper input into the brain? Could it possibly change the output to the quadricep or the hamstring? I've seen it, and we've talked about it on this show before. I've seen it from my coaching days when I was coaching at New Mexico State and at Texas Tech. I've seen a kid, a running back, catch a pass out there by himself, plant his foot on the turf at Jones Stadium, and blow his knee out. Standing out there by himself. Nobody's around him. He didn't get hit by anybody. He wasn't even within 5 yards of somebody. He ran a swing pass. He came out there, he caught the pass, he put his foot in the ground and blew his knee out. Why? Because in that microsecond of time, he had an imbalance of movement, an imbalanced moving pattern from his afferent and efferent information, and it was probably already there before he put his foot on the ground. His what are they saying right here? Where it interacts with descending motor commands at the spinal cord and reflexively modulates motor neuron excitability. It modulates that excitability of which part of those neurons are going to fire. Is my quad going to fire? Is my hamstring going to fire? Is my glute going to fire? How are all those things going to be modulated together? And is there some sort of disruption in the central nervous system that added to that moment where he stuck his foot in the ground and blew out his knee? That's what I'm talking about. Now, most of us are not going to catch a swing pass on Jones Stadium turf, so we don't have to worry about blowing out our knee that way. But we might be walking on a knee for 40 or 50 or 60 years that has an abnormal motor firing pattern that's disruption in the central nervous system that happened way before I ended up with some sort of osteoarthritis in my knee. And there is an article right here that supports that idea. Experimental models of osteoarthritis, the role of immobilization. Clinical Biomechanics, November 1987, Volume 2, Number 4, pages 223 through 229. Institute of Occupational Health, Helsinki, Finland. This article cites 40 references. The unique capacity of periarticular tissue to adapt to the shortest distance between its origin and insertion is profoundly significant to musculoskeletal function. Well, hang on. Whenever the periarticular shrinkage stems from immobilization, the process does not affect articular cartilage only. Instead, the whole joint is involved. Immobilization, for whatever reason, immobilization means the lack of movement, for whatever reason, is one of the pathogenic factors in musculoskeletal degeneration. This is clinical biomechanics. If it doesn't move properly, it is a disease process factor in musculoskeletal degeneration. It is, quote, beyond reasonable doubt that immobilization is not only a cause of osteoarthritis, but that it delays the healing process. Now, we said it multiple times on the show. Osteoarthritis, degeneration, is multiple faceted. It's got a movement component, biomechanical component, and it's got a chemical component. You can be inflamed, you can have cytokines, you can have that. We mentioned that, I think, last week in one of our other articles, that those things connect together, right? But these guys are saying it's beyond a reasonable doubt that immobilization is not only a cause of osteoarthritis, but it delays the healing process. If immobilization, irrespective of its cause, cannot be avoided, it would be therapeutically logical to take every possible step to limit its extent and duration. Well, immobilization to us doesn't have to be that you have yourself in a cast. It doesn't have to be that you have yourself in some sort of sling. Immobilization to us can be the abnormal firing pattern that's happening in your central nervous system that's causing your quad muscle and your hamstring muscle to change the mobilization of your knee joint, the way that your knee joint is firing. Or a lot of times it happens where you've externally rotated your hip, so your hip joint is open, your foot points out, and now you're going forward. And when you're going forward with your foot pointing out, you're on the inside of your shoe. You're pushing off on the inside of your shoe, which is causing an abnormal movement pattern on the medial aspect, the inside aspect of your knee joint. You can have hip problems with that, hip deterioration and knee deterioration, and foot problems because you've pronated your foot has dropped and flattened, and now you're walking on that over a long period of time. To me, that is also immobilization. It doesn't have to just be locked down completely. It can be abnormally moving over a period of time. And those things will fire back. Did you have some particular injury to the foot? Did you have some particular injury to the knee? Did you have some particular injury to the hip? Or are you dealing with an abnormal neurological firing pattern from the brain down to those areas? The brain's not firing properly. And now my legs turned out, and then I get to be 50, 60, 70 years old, and my knee's worn out. And it's a immobilization. It is abnormal. You either have full range of motion of the joint, or you have decreased range of motion of the joint. And decreased range of motion of the joint is immobilization. Just turn your head. Just turn your head where you're sitting, and turn your head and see if you can turn your head all the way in both directions. See if it's easier to turn your head in one direction than it is to turn your head in the other direction. Can you tilt? Can you tilt and put your head on your shoulder, or put your head on your shoulder in both directions? If you can't, you've got immobilization in that range of motion, and immobilization is going to cause degeneration right here. It's going to cause that over a period of time, right? When the adverse effects of immobilization have already become apparent, the earlier they are treated, the better. The quicker we could get to them, the better. If you do this, let's just say you turn your head to the left and you can only turn it part way. Like it gets restricted at about 50, 60 degrees. But you can turn your head to the right and you can go almost a whole 90 degrees to the right. Well, if that is happening right there, does it hurt? And you'll say, no, it doesn't hurt. Is it deteriorating? According to the Clinical Biomechanics, November 1987, immobilization, for whatever reason, is one of the pathogenic factors in musculoskeletal deterioration. According to those guys, it's deteriorating. It is degenerating because you can't move it, but it doesn't hurt. It's not hurting. It's just wearing out. would it make sense that abnormal movement and abnormal biomechanics and abnormal joint range of motion could be pathological before it's symptomatic? Yes. So when you say, "Well, I feel fine," yeah, most people that die of a heart attack say that too. I feel fine. I was perfectly fine. Most people that get diagnosed with cancer, they say the same thing. I felt fine. I but then all of a sudden something went wrong, and then it's like all of a sudden I got a tumor in my brain. It's like, wait a minute, how that you were healthy before you were healthy or not? How long does it take for a breast cancer tumor to develop? Right? Those things, they're not. We're not fine. We just don't know that we're not fine. So rest and immobilization are not satisfactory forms of treatment for osteoarthritis. During the first month of immobilization, there is an increase in periarticular fibrosis. Experimental studies show that after 2 weeks of immobilization, X-ray changes are seen, including joint space narrowing, subchondral sclerosis, osteophyte formation. You get bone spurs with it. A consistent finding caused by joint immobilization is that the joint capsular thickening, which leads to increased immobilization. And now we've got a feedback loop going on. That joint capsule becomes thicker. It causes you to be able to move less. Now you're moving less. That's causing you to get more degeneration and more joint thickening, capsular thickening, and then it just snowballs on us. After trauma, some immobilization is indicated, especially in the absence of clear instability following injury. In cases with clear evidence of trauma, some caution is indicated. Yes, of course, right? We wouldn't want to move something if somebody fell off a ladder, broke their neck. Just like we might need some moments of immobilization. You got in a car wreck, we got to pay attention to that. If you had a fall, we got to pay attention to that. With respect to patients, it can be postulated that immobilization, for whatever cause, will initiate a pathogenic chain of musculoskeletal degenerative changes. The evidence reviewed showed that it's very clear that mobilization is essential, perhaps combined with tractioning. So, yes, that's a major factor in movement. So, I'm going to carry this on in either tomorrow night or Thursday night's show because I'm running out of time tonight. But movement is not just walking. Walking is feeding your brain because your feet are hitting the floor, right? You've got those receptors in your feet. You've got load-bearing receptors in all of your tissues, your ankle, your ligaments, your knee, your calf, your fascia, in your hips. All those are, when you're on your feet, they are sending afferent information into your brain. They are giving your brain the power that it needs. That is super important to move and exercise, right? But I'm also wanting to add to the immobilization is the way that your spine is not moving properly. And getting your spine to move properly decreases the pathogenic effect on the musculoskeletal system that causes the degeneration. And making that to move better is going to be, it's going to help in so many different ways right there. So, yeah, that was cool. We didn't get through all of it tonight, but we will get through. I'll just keep it up, and we'll kind of carry on some of this because I want to get back to that study of the back pain thing with the kids, and talking about how moving those joints is going to help that resolve that problem, fire the brain properly, set the joint mechanics back in order the way it's supposed to be, and get them back on track where they're supposed to be. So that does it. That's the end of our show tonight. I hope you guys got something out of that. I hope you guys go out and go for a walk this evening. If you're around Lubbock, it's fantastic. Get out there. We got a baseball game going on over there. The Red Raiders are playing New Mexico State, which is two places that I actually coached football at one point in my life. So that's kind of cool that they're playing each other. Other than that, that's all I got for you tonight. I hope you guys have a great night, and we'll see you again tomorrow night at 6.